to take a second to thank our two sponsors for this event series, Farm Credit East and Fresh Pond Capital, and everyone who has already made a donation to support our work, which makes a huge difference for making this possible. So before we dive in, let me just introduce the Carrot Project and the series real quick. So the Carrot Project is, I guess I was about to go into my own spiel, which is a nonprofit based in Boston. We are an organization that is seeking a just and resilient farm and food system. And for us, that means one that is supporting farmers who are using regenerative practices, that represents the cultural and racial diversity of New England and the Hudson Valley, which is where we work, and contributes to a healthy food supply. We do that by helping farmers build and use financial management skills that will allow them to be here for 5, 10, 25 years from now. We do that through business advising. And for us, that means helping them answer questions like, can I afford this? Should I enter this market? Can I take out a loan? And any other question that comes up as they are adapting operations to the pandemic, which is a big part of what we'll be talking about today. Outside of our direct client support, we also use our knowledge and experience of working with farmers every day for 15 years to do research and education and influence policy that makes it easier for the farmers that we work with to succeed. So the campaign that we're participating in, Ready for Resilience, is an online event series that we're hoping will give you some insights into how farmers are dealing with the pandemic and how they are helping to build that more resilient farm and food system that we're talking about. So this is the part of the final push to raise the last $25,000 of a campaign to ensure that the Carrot Project can help farmers address the aftermath of the pandemic. And I want to thank everyone again who has made a donation. And if you haven't, I would love to invite you to consider making a donation as part of this campaign. Okay, Nick, shall we get started? So I'm so happy that we're joined today by Nick Martinelli from Marty's Local in Pittsfield, Mass. He has a very interesting background that I don't know if we're going to get into too much, but I gather that you worked in state government as a lawyer for several years, including in Governor Patrick's administration, before a career change to sustainable agriculture. Nick moved to Western Mass, got some experience working on local farms, and then saw the need for a way to link farmers and food processors and food producers with local institutions. So we'll get more into what that's all about. And Nick worked with the Carrot Project all the way back in 2015 with one of our business advisors to do, I believe, the initial market research and prepare the business plan for Marty's Local. Whew. So we have a couple of great pictures that I will be flipping through. And then I will unshare my screen so we can just have this conversation. Okay, here we are. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Jenny.
So the first question that I want to ask you is, making a farm business work in today's markets is very demanding. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit to what your special sauce is in terms of a business model. What makes Marty's Local work in the way that it does?
Sure. So we are in the food hub model. We're a food distributor, and we work with a little over 70 farmers and food producers based primarily in Western Massachusetts, some over in the Hudson Valley, and some elsewhere in New England. And then we also offer some non-local foods as well. I think we started in January 2016 after doing a feasibility study in 2015 with the assistance of the Carrot Project. And I think what has been the key factors for our growth and success during that time have been our strong partnerships with these farmers. I mean, what we're trying to do is really facilitate the marketing, the trucking, the logistics on behalf of farms and food producers so that they can focus on production and quality control. And so really our secret sauce, as you say, is the quality of the foods we're bringing our customers from so nearby in many instances. And sometimes it's right up the road. It's just that the business and the farmer both don't have the bandwidth to do that work. And so there was a need and remains a need for a business to do the work of linking the farms and food producers with the businesses And we've had many customers say to us, they used to go drive around in their station wagon to these farms and pick up, and now they got those hours back from their day. So that's one, and I think that's the biggest one. And then certainly since then, since we've built those partnerships, customer service and caring about doing a good job, doing right by the farms that we're working with, fulfilling the orders in a professional way. There are, our competitors in a strange way are many thousands of times our size. And sometimes they do a good job of customer service, but at our scale, it's really the only thing that we have to hang our hat on beyond the differentiated offerings that we have from our farm partners.
That's a lot of elements of the special sauce. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. I've been that person in the station wagon driving around to various farms, so yeah. I wish I lived in Western Mass. My next question is related to starting your business. So every food business owner relies on a lot of resources, especially when they're getting started. Why did you work with the Carrot Project, and what did that do for you, Marty's Local?
Yeah, so it was 2015, and the concept at that point, it was really just the concept of, certainly there were food hubs across the country. I think at the time there were more than 300. I don't know what the number is now, but I was put in touch with a few folks. I was just trying to recall with Dorothy what the initial exact arrangement was or link of connections, but I was put in touch with the Carrot Project, and I knew that I needed to, before really investing in it and making a go at it, I needed to have kind of a professionally done, what we called a feasibility study. And Carrot Project was able to help secure the funding for that through, I think, a federal funding source. And that really launched that to me. There was good data that we got in that from both the farmer side and the business, customer side, which ranged from grocery stores to caterers and hotels and colleges, all across the gamut. But the real value, the biggest value, was the connections, those contacts, because once I got started that following January, I had then had that really nice, professional, polished introduction through Holly Fowler and Scott Richardson of the Northbound Ventures, who did the feasibility study. And so then it was a follow-up conversation as opposed to my introduction to many of these customers. And then I said, hey, we talked about this last summer. Now we have these, some of these offerings. Are you interested? And so I wasn't it wasn't a cold call at that point. So that was a really helpful start. Remain grateful to the Carrot Project for getting us going in 2015 with really no, it was really at the bare bones. So it was the beginning.
Great, thank you so much. So the real core of this conversation is I would love to hear a little bit about how the pandemic affected your business. So on our end, right as the farming season was starting to hit high gear, the pandemic changed pretty much everything, and that's been the case for a lot of folks that we've talked with. And I'm curious, as a distributor rather than as a producer, if that's been the case for you as well, or what impacts you've seen.
Yeah, so right at the outset, we had a real hard time with staffing, like many businesses did. People in many cases for us, it was folks who weren't sick themselves, but had family members who were, or were fearful of, everything going on and bringing home to their household. So we were really challenged in terms of just having enough people to run the trucks and fulfill orders. Mm. People worked long hours. We managed through that. And then in May, I would say, we started to get back to full strength. And what we saw was a big shift in our customer base from, we had a lot of restaurant and college customers who all either went to zero or went very close to zero, as everybody knows. But the retail side of things, and that's really everywhere from very small roadside stand, farm stands, to a farm store that's part of a farm's business, to an independent grocer, to a co-op, to a chain grocer. All of those categories went way up because, and in particular, the farm stores, went up probably 5-6-fold in many cases because their neighbors didn't want to go to the big box store anymore. They wanted to go to the place that they've been driving by for a few years, and then they said, "Oh, let me stop in here and see what they have." And boy, they have a great selection, and then they got to meet their farmer. And so for a lot of, I mean, it's probably 15 to 20, at least 15 farmers that we work with who are also, in many cases, vendors to us, but they are customers of ours also. So it works both ways. So we deliver food to them from other farms in the area, and we pick up their food and sell it. And their stores started to play a much more substantial role in people's eating habits, or fulfilling people's eating habits here in Western Mass. I suspect the same is true elsewhere, but I haven't talked to enough people to know that that's the case.
Yeah, I wonder maybe in the question and answers, if folks have experiences with that, they can type in. Makes a lot of sense, and certainly lines up with what I've seen as a consumer too.
Yeah, and it was great to see too, and I hope it persists. You know, it's not just a short-term thing.
So that leads directly into our last question. I'm kind of like pushing us along here because
Sure.
we got started a little bit late. So part of the focus of this whole series is thinking about what makes for a resilient farm and food system, and that seems like a big piece of it. So as somebody who is on the front lines of the farm and food system, reflecting on society at large and your community and the changes that we've seen from the pandemic, and this could cover anything from racial disparities.
Cut out there for a minute, Jenny. There you go.
I think I just got a call. So, you know, seeing folks' experiences with food insecurity in the last 6 months, I'm wondering if you have thoughts that you could share about how we can build a more resilient food system and what a food system that is both just and resilient might look like. And I realize that's a huge question, so pick up on anything you want to.
Yeah, sure. It is. I think there are a lot of topics in there, and one thing we know for sure is that a shorter supply chain is a more durable supply chain. And that's been kind of the impetus for what we're doing from the beginning. And then we saw in a very real time, actual way that in practice over the last 7 months, as worldwide supply chains were disrupted, our farmers were still farming and still producing food, and we were still picking up from them and delivering it. And so from a resiliency perspective, I felt it was great to see that, and it was impressive to see, and it's a real credit to the farmers and food producers in the region, and to our team who put on the masks, put on the gloves, extra sanitation, and kept going. And then I think the bigger part of that question has to do with so much else in terms of the economy and education that we can all pay attention to and need to work toward. But it's beyond one sector of the economy in a way, and certainly for our part, we hope to play a role in food access and ensuring that access is for all levels of income, and that's a real challenge in light of the price structure.
Yeah, hear all of that. Great. Well, thank you. So in our last couple of minutes here, let's switch back over to a quick question and answer session. So if everyone can turn your video back on, join us. And I think we can still handle a couple of questions at least. So because we have a small group, if you want to just unmute yourself and ask away, I think that would be just fine. So does anyone want to get us started here?
I'll jump right in. I guess my question was, of the things that you started to talk about it, but of the new markets, the kind of growth in the retail markets and the move from institutions, as as this season is kind of wrapping up, how do you think about maintaining or keeping those, or are you just anticipating that sometime next year you'll flip back to institutions, or kind of where's your head on that?
Yeah, I think it's a real unknown on the college and other institutions side, whether it's a yoga or meditation retreat center or something like that. I think that really has to do with the reaction, the government, what we're doing with a vaccine, and when people can go back to those places in a way en masse, as opposed to kind of in a selective way it's happening now. Some of our college customers are operating right now, and some of them are just totally remote, as everybody knows. And so I'm trying not to make too many predictions about that side of it. I do think the retail side of it, and the farm store, in particular farm stores and smaller retailers, are going to continue. My hope and expectation is that through the winter, that continues to be a place that people shop, because you go into a building that has 5 people in it or 20 people in it instead of 100 or 120. And no disrespect to those larger stores, which are certainly playing a role, but I think that's where people's comfort level is in some cases. And those stores, all of them have gotten better over the course of the last 7 months with dealing with this and creating safe environments.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have a question for Nick?
I have a question. Hi, Nick. Thanks. It's great to hear from you. I'm wondering if there are, you talked about the feasibility study you did through the Carrot Project. Are there other things you see that your business in particular as a distributor, or some of the farmers you work with, that the Carrot Project, are there other areas that you need support in, and you can imagine going back to the Carrot Project for, or maybe additional services the Carrot Project might offer to help your business, either like in the time of COVID or just in general?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things I guess I have two answers. One of the things we looked at real early on and spent a lot of time that first summer in 2015 looking at was processing of local produce. And there are 2 entities that are regionally or geographically proximate to us that do that now. Franklin County CDC has a Western Mass Food Processing Center, and over in New York State in Kingston, I think there's a place called Farm Bridge. I think they're still processing local veg and freezing it too, flash freezing it. But that's a need that I think is out there, and we've looked at, and I just don't have the bandwidth right now to pursue it, but it's something I could foresee us looking at. And whether it's partnering with one of those entities or doing it ourselves, I don't know. But I think it's a great way to expand the use of local produce. And the other part of it is, at that time I was really just just starting and didn't have a set of sort of advisors or any resources like that, and have been fortunate to connect with people along the way that have acted in that capacity for us. So yeah, I could certainly see reaching back out to the Care Project at some point, and I've been fortunate that we've built up a little bit of a network of people to assist us, whether it's on the kind of a part-time CFO side, which has been very helpful. But I know there are businesses that we work with that need bookkeepers, for example, or need bookkeeping expertise. And every time that comes up, and it comes up more than once a year, I go back through the same slow channels. And it would be great if there were a resource, out there for that. I know this is a very specific topic, but I think that as it pertains to financially, sound financial management, having good books, solid books you can rely on is a fundamental. And so that's something that I was actually making a note to myself to reach back out to Dorothy and Jenny to say, do you know any good bookkeepers? Not for us, but for businesses we work with.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think we could have time for one more question if we want to push this a little bit, or if folks are eager to stick to our stated closing time, we could also wrap up. Anyone have a burning question that you must have answered?
Only if no one else has one. I wouldn't
Go
say
for it.
but hi, I'm Jay. I'm a software engineer who's really interested in this food space. And so one of the questions that I had is like, obviously technology is kind of bridging its way slowly into this world, but do you see places where, or a place where you foresee like technology being able to help, especially at the local level, like the distribution of foods and that kind of thing across, well, at least here, and if not, further on across, like as time develops and as we get, more of this across the country?
I do. I think it's been very important for us over the last few years. We've developed kind of a customized solution using a business called Local Food HQ. And there are others out there. Local Food Marketplace is another one that exists. Foragers is another one, or Forager, not with S. And there are a handful of others that are competing in this space to not only help distributors in the middle, but farmers post their availability, because having the way a lot of availability is shared right now is by Excel spreadsheet or just by text message. And to take it to that next level, a lot of our farm partners have done it where they use a tool, an online tool, where it can help them in a professional manner post their availability, manage their inventory, manage orders, interactions with the customers, show pictures of their products, helps with marketing. So there are a number of ways that I think some of these sites that I just mentioned have helped the farms in the area, in our area, grow their businesses. And I think that's only going to increase. The challenge that I see is if you have too many of those different platforms out there, them not talking to one another. And we face that right now. We ask our farm partners, can you post your availability on our site? And they say, well, we have 4 other platforms we have to post it on. And I don't know what the solution is, over the next 10 years, what's going to happen with that, but technology is both the problem there, and it's going to be the solution, I think, in some ways, because it can create a lot of efficiencies in the way we share information.
So I have a quick follow-up question, Jenny, if you don't mind. So
I actually was about to close us out, but
it's quick. So Nick, have you seen and looked at Department of Ag Resources' new interface for making these connections?
I have seen that, yeah, and I think I haven't used it, but it's in fact, it's a lot like what we do in terms of posting availability, but then we take the other step of delivering it. So that is a static post availability. People make the connection, then they figure out freight or shipping and whatnot. And I think that's going to be really helpful for a lot of folks. I think it remains to be, I don't know what the usage has been. I'd be really interested to hear from DAR where, I certainly see there's a lot of posting on there, but I wonder how much sales are happening as a result of that. And I hope it's a lot.
great.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I think unfortunately that's all we have time for today. It always seems like we could just have these conversations going on endlessly, but I want to thank everyone for your thoughtful questions, for showing up, for persevering through our technical assistance or technical problems at the beginning. And thank you, Nick, for your thoughtful responses to all these questions. It's always great to hear about short supply chains as a really, central piece of developing resilience in our food systems. Folks showing up for each other, local communities becoming stronger, even though everything around them is becoming more difficult, and all the different ways that you guys are working to connect the dots, whether that's low tech, high tech, new ideas. It's really interesting to hear about distribution as a part of the food system that we don't always focus on and highlight in the same way as we do food production. So thank you.
Yeah.
As Nick and other farmers and food business owners like him are working through their questions about the pandemic and figuring out what they need to do to keep up with changes and uncertainty, we at the Carrot Project are here to help. Our business advisors and trainers, like Holly, who Nick worked with, are prepared to help farmers, food processors, and business owners all figure out how they can recover from the pandemic, figure out what's happening and decide what to do next so that they can stay viable for the long term. And that's what we do, and that's what we're going to continue doing. So I will take the opportunity again to invite you to make a donation if you have not already. That support will go directly towards helping small farmers and small entrepreneurs like Nick and many others with your support. Happy to say that we are 84% of the way along to our goal. We're trying to raise $140,000, and we are getting there. And it will make a big difference towards helping ensure that wonderful businesses like Marty's Local are here to stay.